That's how God works. Play my position, what is given with no concerns. Set it off. Top of the morning, I'm gonna set it off.
Have you ever heard of the Harvard study that ran for 75 years to assess what makes us happy? It's a revolutionary study in psychology. It followed the lives of two groups of men for over 75 years, and it now follows their baby boomer children to understand how childhood experience reaches across decades to affect health and well-being in middle age. So what keeps us happy and healthy as we go through life? If you think it's fame and money, you're not alone. But according to psychiatrist Robert Waldinger, you're mistaken. As the director of a 75-year-old study on adult development, Waldinger has unprecedented access to data on true happiness and satisfaction, and he lays it all bare in this TED Talk.
What keeps us healthy and happy as we go through life? If you were to invest now in your future best self, where would you put your time and your energy? The clearest message that we get from this 75-year study is this: good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period. We've learned three big lessons about relationships. The first is that social connections are really good for us and that loneliness kills. Second big lesson that we learned is that it's not just the number of friends you have, and it's not whether or not you're in a committed relationship, but it's the quality of your close relationships that matters. And the third big lesson that we learn about relationships and our health is that good relationships don't just protect our bodies, they protect our brains.
So the biggest predictor of your happiness and fulfillment overall in life is basically love. Specifically, the study showed that having someone you can rely upon helps your nervous systems relax, helps your brain stay healthy, and reduces emotional pain. The data also clearly found that those who feel lonely are more likely to see their physical health decline earlier and die younger. It's not just the number of friends you have, and it's not whether or not you're in a committed relationship. It's the quality of your close relationships that matters. It doesn't matter whether you've got a huge group of friends or if you're in the perfect romantic relationship. It's the quality of the relationships that count the most. How much depth and honesty exists within them, the extent to which you can relax and be seen for who you truly are. This is a great reminder to prioritize authentic connection with others, because the data is clear that in the end, you could have all the money you've ever wanted, but without loving relationships, you won't be happy.
What up, y'all? We are back live in full effect after a couple of weeks off here at the Great Joy Hunt. My name is Andrew Defy, a.k.a. the Gorilla Poet Laureate, a.k.a. the Hoodie God, a.k.a. Spitting Quarantino, a.k.a. I wear my sunglasses indoors no matter what time it is because my eyes are as sensitive as my heart is, y'all. And we have an incredible show for you today. I took a couple weeks off just for my own mental health. I can't tell y'all to prioritize your own mental health without doing it myself. So been really sitting and meditating, doing my work. Been on my own personal joy hunt. So I'm really glad to be back with y'all. Got a couple really big announcements from the Great Joy Hunt. Number one, we will be headlining Sacramento Creative Con coming up April 10th. I've got an amazing panel put together that will be talking about self-care for artists. So that's going to be amazing. Tune into that. Also, we picked up a new sponsor, y'all. So you see it. This is only one of the designs that they sent over, and they've got some more amazing designs that I'm actually going to purchase. And this is where you find them. Must Have Joy on IG or musthavejoy.com. Go pick up some gear, support them because they are supporting us. We're going to have the creator of that brand on the show and talk a little bit more about what kind of motivated them. So, it's been a little while since we've done this, but it is that time. You know how we start this show, y'all, with a little segment called What's Your Number?
This how God works. Playing my position, what is given with no concerns. Set it off. Top of the morning, I'm gonna set it off.
So this is the part of the show where we take stock of where we're at for the day. You know what I'm saying? And again, you can make your own scale. I'm gonna rock off a scale of 1 to 10 today. It's pretty easy, but you know, what animal do you feel like? You know what I mean? On a scale of yellow to purple, what do you feel like? You know what I mean? What color does your energy feel today? So this is where we take stock of ourselves and our own energy. You ain't got to put it in the comments. You can, but you don't have to, because this is for you, not for me. You know what I'm saying? And this just gets us in the practice of every day taking stock of where we're at, where our energy is at. Because if you know where you're at, then you know where you need to get to and where you're trying to get to. You know what I mean? So you know, I would say myself, I'm pulling in a little low for Andrew. You know what I mean? Y'all used to seeing me at like a 7, 8, 9. I would say I'm probably in this like, I'm at like a 5 right now, maybe a 5.5, because I got a very special guest coming through, and because my homegirl Apria already dropped off a whole bunch of art prints to me this morning, so that was super exciting. Also, I don't know how people are out and about functioning at 9 a.m. That's wild to me. So you know, take stock of your number, and we are going to get into the meat and potatoes of this here show, aka. You know, if you're vegan, then it's like the asparagus and broccoli of the show. You know what I'm saying? We don't discriminate here. So we are going to get into, I have a very, very special guest that I have been waiting to have on this show. Katie McCleary is a entrepreneur, visionary, author, just superhero. You know what I mean? Like real Sacramento superhero. The landscape of the city would not be the same without her. And one of my favorite joy hunters in all of Sacramento. So y'all, please give it up for the one and only Katie McCleary.
This how God works. Playing my position, what is given with no concerns. Set it off. Top of the morning, I'm gonna set it off.
Hi.
Hey.
Kind introduction that you gave me. That's very, very sweet. Thank you.
And so it's not just Katie McCleary here. We also have, who is this behind us?
This is Milo, the Eclectus. And I honestly have no business talking about joy without actually talking about Milo himself, but really for me, what Milo represents. So, and that's what gives me great joy. So yeah, this is Milo. He's an eclectus and he's 6 years old. He does talk. He has about 150 words. He has about 8 human voices, and he's very smart. And he is like having another child in my house because he is my other child. Yeah.
So, you know, we always talk about shortcuts to joy, and I got my little shortcut to joy over here too. So, you know, we're fully animal friendly on this episode today. So first off,
tigers, so that's good. I wore tigers. I often wear.
So first and foremost, like, how are you? How has quarantine been for you? It's been a year plus since we've got to sit down in the flesh. How you been?
I've been really good. So I'm always on a journey. If anybody ever says, how you doing? I'm like, oh my God, it's been such a journey. And I think that's been my answer for 25 years now. So the journey never stops. Can't stop, won't stop. I'm always on a roller coaster. So yeah, I would say that 2019 was one of the worst years of my life. In fact, it probably would go down as the year that I thought I had hit rock bottom. 2019 was pretty hard, man. So nothing tragic, just a lot of like taking stock and mental health. So I thought 2020 is my year. I was like 2020 on it. I basically had a whole new vision for my business and the next, 10 years of my life and what I was going to build. And then, February hit. And yeah, I would say that this is about normal for freelancers, entrepreneurs, creatives, about 80% of my income just gone, right? Just knock the chessboard off the table. We're all done. So I just did what I always do, which is I went to the small things. That's all we can do. Return to gratitude, take stock of the small things, hunker down, pinch on in, and accept the pause and the pain that has been thrust upon us and do it. So I just went inward like I always do, but still try to maintain that hand on social connection, the hand on our city, the hand on helping people. But yeah, it's just, I'm like everybody else.
And I think it was such a unique opportunity to go inward, right? And the people, we talked a little bit recently about, I think there's a little bit of guilt for some folks who developed. Maybe you developed spiritually, maybe you developed economically, maybe you developed physically. I know a lot of people who did do that thing where they went completely inward, maybe started a new business or put that time that they weren't out and about, since we weren't allowed to roam around, into some creative endeavor. And I think it really gave us a unique opportunity to go inward. And I think a lot of the folks who I'm seeing come out of this better off did take that opportunity to go inward. I said at the beginning of it, I felt like the universe was like our mom that was like, everybody needs to go sit down. You're all on timeout. So I definitely had some of that.
Well, I will say that, I've spent my whole life. This is so funny, Andrew. So I'm cleaning out my garage yesterday, and I found a 5-page letter that I wrote myself in 1998. I've been writing letters to myself my whole life, and I have them back to the 5th grade. So this letter in 1998 was everything I was going to accomplish, do, and be, and have by the time X, Y, and Z when I was old. So I took the inventory yesterday, and number 1 on it was write a book. Number 1 accomplishment, write a book and then publish it and all this stuff. So I've been trying to do that for 20 years. So this year really gave me a lot of focus, right? To just say, well, you've got nothing else to do, girl. You better do the thing that you've been trying to do for a very long time. And so, I'm happy to announce that I sold a book this year. So I've written lots of books. I've had literary agents. I've pitched to publishers. I've gone to acquisitions. I've done all the things that authors do to try to get the big contract. And it never worked out for me before until this year. So, and it was the fairy tale. So I wrote the book with my co-author. We'd been working on the book for about 2 years, actually. We had our dream list of agents. We went after the dream list. We heard back within 8 hours. We signed 2 days later. He sold the book probably 10 days later. We negotiated for 50 days, but basically 2 editors immediately within 4 days said, yeah, we want to read this book. We want to put in an offer. We sold it, and it comes out next February. So that was a big thing for me in 2020. I will say that. I did get one of my biggest goals checked off the list, and I'm very happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm trying to get like you, working on this Great Joy Hunt book currently. And just the process of, I have so much respect for anyone that's written a book. One of my favorite rappers in the world says, I only rap because I ain't smart enough to write a book. And that's kind of how I've been feeling recently, where I'm like, no, I get chapters here and lining out the chapters, and then how does this move to this, and just figuring out the flow of things. I think the ideas are all there, but figuring out how it moves is a little different process.
Here is my book. Yeah, and it's nonfiction, and it's about relationships and happiness, and it's really about bridging the gap between, there we go. I don't know how to move my camera, but it's thick, right? There's a lot of language to keep track of, and ideas and flow and order, and it takes a lot of practice to get here. So I'm not tooting my own horn, but it's 20 years of writing books and then working on other people's books. So I've published no books, but if you look at the books that I've helped people write and develop and edit and publish, or published myself, I mean, the kid factor is in 200 books alone. And then the adults I've helped about 35 authors publish their books. So it's a career, right? And I think writers get I think a lot of people don't understand that about writing. It's a craft, it's a process, it's teamwork, it's marketing, it's audience, it's voice, it's art. It is all those things. It's thought leadership, it's research, it's all of it. So people do not take book writing seriously enough. Like, it's practicing for the Olympics, people. If you really want to write, it's a full-time job. So, and I'm unabashed about it. Everybody can write a book. I'm totally down for that. It's people underestimate what it takes to do it.
Right. Well, and I think for me, it's one of those things. So I believe in, one of my personal mantras is alignment over hustle, right? So I believe that you can effort all day, but if you're not aligned and your energy isn't right, then it will take 10 times longer than if you take the 20 minutes to align yourself, get yourself right, and then, do the thing, whatever the thing is. So for me, that's a big part of the process right now is like, all right, how do I get myself into alignment to write this book? Because I know that if I work on getting myself into alignment, I'll sit down and write 10 pages, just flowing with no problem. But those same 10 pages, if I'm not in alignment and I didn't do my meditation or I didn't get my workout in or I'm not taking care of myself, then those same 10 pages will take me 10 weeks. Yeah. So I definitely, I think that's a huge part of any creative endeavor. Like that, as I've learned, is like make sure that your energy is right before you get into the space.
I think for me, when I hear you talk about alignment, it's so true. And the way that I think about it, which ties to Milo, is I think often about instinct. What's instinctual to us? What is our innate and natural wisdom? What are we designed, deigned, focused, purposed to do and be? So a parrot is a parrot, a human is a human, but man, can I learn from parrots, and man, do parrots learn from humans. So it's a little bit about instinct. And then I think the alignment part is really about process for an artist. So you have your instinct, that thing in which we all know, but is the great mystery as well, right? So we can refine and move towards that, but there's still something really mysterious and instinctually wisdom within us about what we're born to do. So if you're born to write, born to write. I think then process is, did I take care of myself? Am I in the right state? Am I following the things that I need to do to be unblocked and to be in the flow and in the rhythm? And that itself, right, has a special magic, but it can also be mechanical. So I talk to a lot of writers and artists about their process and about uncovering their process in the real, like, nitty gritty day to day. How can we get your plane to take off faster so you're not blocked or ruminating or berating yourself or shooting all over yourself, or I didn't get my morning pages done? I don't care about your morning pages. I don't know who told you that you had to have morning pages, but I know that there's someone telling you that, right? Like, so what's your process to your instinct, to your craft, to your just mechanics and measurements and time of the day to get your energy producing, creating? Because what you create then, you're right, it's 10 times better than forcing it in your morning pages. So I feel like I'm on a long diatribe, but there you go.
No, it's so crucial and so helpful, especially from someone who's actually, got a book out now. So that alignment over effort. So I want to talk a little bit about this book. And it's funny because, the International Day of Happiness was on Saturday. So that's what really brought my attention. I do another show on Monday nights, and tonight we'll be talking about that, but we'll also be talking about that Harvard study that we started the show off with. And so we've learned from numerous scientific studies now, including that one, that relationships keep us happier and healthier. Your book is called Bridge the Gap: Foster Meaningful Relationships and Work at Work Using Curiosity and Open Communication. Can you talk to us more about your book and what made you want to write on that subject?
Yeah. So in 2018, I met this wonderful woman named Jennifer Edwards Robinson. And if you were to look at me and Jennifer, right off the bat, you would say those are two very different women. So Jennifer's Republican. I'm Democrat. She's very conservative. I am very not. I am heavily tattooed. She is very polished. Her clients are corporations. My clients are community nonprofits. So we really live on these two different spectrums, right? So she is an expert in the power of your brain and your body and how well do you perform under pressure. She used to be a very competitive athlete. My whole thing is how do you understand your mind and your backstory? And how is your story constantly fueling who you are or who you think you can be or who you sometimes get shackled to being? So we saw this really amazing opportunity because she coaches people, I coach people. How do we intersect our stories, who we are, and who we sometimes represent at two different parts of the aisle to say, how can we actually have relationships where you can be curious, where you can ask questions that, you can be safe to have answered, right? Who are we and what is this about? And what can we learn from each other? Because I was at a point where I was feeling pretty stuck about some stuff. And I think she was at a point in her life where she was feeling pretty stuck about some stuff. And together we helped each other out. But we had to find a process through that, a process to communicate. And it really all comes down to curiosity. And what is real curiosity? And what's curiosity fraud, right? How are we keeping our egos in check? How am I actually listening without a ton of filters and cognitive biases, whether that's class, race, gender, etc., right? That come and muck this all up. And so we spent 2 years really just trying to talk about the secret sauce of what I teach to what she teaches to how do those intersect, and then a lot of testing with different audiences and groups about a framework that we developed around curiosity so that you can be yourself. You don't have to sacrifice who you are. But how do you get along with people that you're just like, do you live on a different planet? Like, what are you thinking? What are you believing? How do I communicate with you? How do I learn from you? Do I just discard you? Do I just cancel you? What do I do with you? And so then you write this book during a Trump administration. You write this book during racial upheaval and horror with George Floyd and all the other senseless freaking violence in this country against Black and brown bodies. You write this book during the election. And then you write this book during a pandemic when everybody's shutting down and who's wearing masks and who's not wearing masks. So Jennifer and I have been on a roller coaster. So this book is half nonfiction in the business space where you learn a framework to communicate with anyone without sacrificing who you are and still being able to build a relationship with them unless they thrash your values. If someone thrashes your values, you can't really have a relationship. You can't.
That was going to be my next question.
So we talked about that. You thrash my values, you deny me my humanity. Those are deal breakers, man. So we talk a lot about that in the book, right? And then the other half of this book is a memoir. It's interspersed. We've never seen this in really a nonfiction book before. So it's our personal story from each of our sides of the aisle. And our personal story starts in 2018, but it hits, the points that you see it hit are a lot about social media, a lot about how you get to know one another and enter each other's worlds and think, do I even belong to you? Can I belong to you? Will you understand me? Who are you? Who am I? Should we be working together? Story. To George Floyd. What does it mean when one person in this work-wife relationship is vocal and an activist and out loud and out there to another person who doesn't use social media to enact her activism? And what are the conversations we had to have around, if you're going to be my co-author and you're going to be my work wife, who are we together? And what are your values? And what is your story? And how do you understand mine? And how do I understand yours? And what are our non-negotiables? It's non-negotiable for me to work with someone who doesn't believe that Black lives don't matter. It's non-negotiable. Right? And then the other part of our story is the election and the insurrection. So it's pretty fascinating. And that's our book. And we had to write it. And it just felt like all the stars kept aligning, Andrew. There was no push on this. This has been energy alignment. This has been, how the fuck did we get that gig? How did that happen? Like, the universe is working on our behalf. And so when this title, Bridge the Gap, which was not our title, that's our publisher's title. That's it. We're really trying to bridge the gap. And that's really hard, especially in this particular moment of time.
And I've been thinking a lot about that, especially, among the white community. Let's just be square. You know what I mean? Like the Trump supporting white community and the non-Trump supporting white community, and the healing that needs to happen there, and that it is not Black and brown people's job to facilitate that healing. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So being able to, have this framework that is by design for this, to be able to pull people together and figure out, and I like that you left room for, like, there are deal breakers. There are points where, like, if you're not about my humanity, if you're not about justice for me or equity for me or my people, my family, then I can't mess with you.
Right.
Then there is no coming together. And I think that's been there's been a lot of argument about that, where, a lot of folks on the left were like, we just cancel everyone on the right.
Yep.
And, I feel where that frustration comes from. I see where the motivation comes from, but also, like, I don't think in the long run that helps anything. There has to be healing. And again, it does need to be the white community healing the white community, and letting everybody else heal themselves from what the white community and colonialism have done throughout the years. So that's beautiful that y'all were able to, like, kind of touch that framework to be able to bring people from both sides of the aisle together and do it within the constructs of, you're going to respect my humanity.
Yeah.
Because I think there's part of that. You hear people that are like, we have to heal and we have to come together. And it's like, well, how do you come together with someone who doesn't respect your humanity?
Yeah. It's really about the stories we share, and how we start showing up to have very intentional and meaningful encounters, to truly listen and to get the other side to come over, and however you define the other side, right? Because the other side is saying the same thing about the other side that the other side is saying about the other side. So there's no amount of shaming, convincing, cajoling, arguing, berating that's going to bridge any kind of gap ever. And both sides have to recognize that. I think that cancel culture has its time and place in terms of boycotting and in the public realm. I think that when it comes to our politicians, their words absolutely matter, and they need to understand leadership and the weight that they carry and the responsibility they carry. So cancel culture, yeah, you can be canceled if you are a politician. If you're a corporation, same thing. And, Republicans can't argue against that. They set it up. They set it up in the 80s, right? Corporations have the right of refusal, et cetera, et cetera. So, but I am very concerned about cancel culture within our communities, within groups of people talking to each other, within the workplace. It's a powerful tool that you pull when you have no other option to pull. But we're pulling it way too easily because so many of us are just really triggered. And I think curiosity is the only antidote to all this criticism that's just wafting off everyone all the time. Super easy to be critical on social media, super easy to be critical behind your computer, super easy to be critical when you're gossiping or talking with a friend in your backyard. But when you're really faced with someone, right, like, how do you deny their humanity, their story, the way that they're thinking, where they come from? Like, you don't know what education they've had. You don't know what experiences they've had. Like, so just get really curious. Who is this person in front of me? Who is this being in front of me? And they're living in their own magnificent world and story, just like you are. And nobody is trying to be unhappy. That's the other thing I get. It's like, nobody's trying to be unhappy. Like, people are really just, like, doing the best that they can. Are we shitty at it? Oh my God, we're, like, so shitty at it. But nobody's actively trying to be unhappy. And so I'm here to just be open and, like, curious and wonder, How's that human? How's that human creature doing what they know to do in the world, and where are they operating from? And how can I offer some kindness and grace to that, as long as they're not thrashing my values?
And I think like the recognizing, oh, it's funny. It's funny. Heather, you're just on time. She said, trauma makes people seek unhappiness. I was just going to mention trauma. You know, there's so much trauma in it. And I think just having a little bit of grace for each other's trauma, whether we're on the same side or we're on the other side. You know, there's a lot of, the left has its fights within the left, the right has its fights within the right. But I think just being aware and giving grace to people's traumas and understanding that we all have them, and that we've been through things that affect us. We are all the sum of our experiences, you know? So I also want to talk about, so this is a heavy lift to write this book. You know, you've got a little bit of pressure on you. I imagine you put a lot of that pressure on yourself as well. And you want to get this thing done. And we were talking earlier about how you put yourself in a hole where no one could get a hold of you unless they had the password. What are some of the things that, like the self-care methods that you practice when you're in the throes of that creativity?
Yeah. So self-care is so interesting to me because I've been chasing it my whole life and in all the wrong ways. I didn't really understand self-care until I did the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. And I'll full disclosure, I've never really had to bury someone that I loved. And I can't imagine that. So I just want to put that out there. The worst and most like hardest, horrific thing that I did that I never thought I could do was leave 916 Inc., which is a nonprofit that I founded in town that's like super close to my heart. And I poured all my heart and blood and sweat into that organization for a long time. And I left in 2017 because my back kept going out. I didn't walk for 17 days of one full year because my ankle would stop working because my back and sciatica were really bad. Stress, pressure. I thought the ship of doom was coming all the time. I started having horrible anxiety attacks at night. My kids missed me. My family thought I was unrecognizable. It was bad. So I left, and because I wasn't making good decisions for the organizations, and it was really scary. I had no money. I still have no retirement, like no money. People would hire me, but like I left and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I spun for a while. Yeah, I didn't really figure out self-care until I was forced to just stop. So self-care for me is not bubble baths. I mean, I like a good bath. I'll take a bath. It's not buying stuff or treat yourself days, even though I love that. It's not going to the beach, even though I love that. For me, self-care is really being with yourself and learning how to be with yourself. So when that Harvard study says, right, your social relationships and your social connections are the most important thing you'll ever foster in your life, that is about everything. That's about the relationship you have with yourself, with your mind, with everything around you, with ideas, with your work, with your purpose, with nature, the whole thing. How do you have relationships and connections with things? So when I left 916 Inc., I was really devastated of my own accord. Nobody forced me to leave. I did this all on my own. I sat and I cried. I just cried. I think I cried for 2 full years, just bawled all the time. And I learned how to meditate. And that was the hardest thing for me to learn how to do, was to clear the space in my brain to think again. I was just a full human cup. There was nothing you could pour into me anymore because I was just overflowing and drowning in it. So I'm a creator and a person who's like a serial entrepreneur. Like I do pop-up projects, I do big projects, I work on things, and then I'm done, and then I fizzle out, and I take care of myself with quietness. So learning how to sit and gather the space in my brain, learning to know that all we have is the present moment. I really do believe in Eckhart Tolle's power of now and Zen and Buddhism, that we really only have this really lucid, beautiful moment that we're in right now. And so I don't know how to teach so well others to just pause, to just stop, to just clear their brain and their mind, when that has been like a very, very, very hard journey for me to do, given my backstory, my trauma, where I come from, and what I'm wired and built to do. So I have to create boundaries for quietness and space. Oh, Milo's like freaking out. Come here, Milo. Come here, pretty boy. Yeah, come here. Let me give him his pasta. There you go. He eats pasta. So I need space. And that boundaries thing is huge. So when I was gearing up to write this book, which was going to take me 6 weeks, 10 to 14 hours a day of revision, because it was a heavy revision, I told my inner circle, I'm going to be gone. Like in my head, I'm going to be gone. You're talking to me. I'm not listening. I'm thinking about something else. So if you really need me to be present and to be fully with you, you're going to have to tell me the password. So I created a password. And if anybody really needed me to be fully present, all they had to do was text or say the password. I gave that to kind of a trusted kind of moat. I built a moat of people around me. I give away a lot of my time. I probably give away 70% of my working time. So the times that I do work, that 30% I do work, it has to pay enough to feed me, because I'm only working at 30%. It has to be, I have to carve that time out for myself and not let anything impinge upon it, because the other 70% is give. And I have to show, it's not that I have to show up for those people. I mean, I want to show up for those people, but I make a commitment to do that. And so sometimes I have to have real boundaries around my quiet time and the time where I literally force myself to not work. I think that's what people don't recognize about self-care. Force yourself to not work, to not do, and to not measure. We're just measure-making creatures and machines. And I've learned to not measure myself through animals. That's really where I find a lot of my joy. Is how to compare. If I'm going to be compelled to measure myself constantly, I know I'm all over the place. If I'm going to constantly measure myself in my brain, in my head, in my spirit, I've learned how to measure myself against things that are not human, because it helps me actually be brave and show up more to my life to do what I want to do. So I guess that is like a little bit about how I take care of myself. I force myself to do nothing. I force myself to reflect. I force myself to meditate and be still. And I force myself to measure myself against that which is not human, which can be a trap, but.
And I think there's a couple things in there that I want to touch on. Number one is the idea of productivity. Recently, I've been working to shift my idea of productivity from what I get done to how I feel. If at the end of the day, it used to be, I got this grant done and I got this newsletter sent out and I got X, Y, and Z. It was how many things did I knock off the to-do list? In the middle of the pandemic, my mental health slipped, my executive function slipped. I wasn't getting things done. I'm still not working on 100%, but realizing in the middle of all that, when my mental health slipped, that it didn't matter. No amount of grants that I got in or articles that I submitted or any of that was going to help my mental health. The only thing that was going to help my mental health at that moment was self-care, was going to take some time to sit in the sunshine, getting vitamin D, getting out to walk around the neighborhood, finding these little things. So I think redefining productivity and not letting capitalism define productivity for you. I think that drives a lot of us into like early graves, straight up, and mental health issues and all of it. So I love this idea of holding yourself up to a different measurement, and kind of adjusting your own measurements instead of the measurements that we're handed, because we're definitely handed, this is how you're a productive member of society, where, some of my most productive, the most productive work that I do is loving people, showing up for people when people call and they need somebody. Those are the productive, we've saved lives with this art. And that's far more productive than, we filled a concert hall,
Yeah.
the other thing that I want to ask about, because I get this question so often, I'm a big proponent of meditation, but I have such a bastardized style where people will be like, can you teach me to meditate? And I'm like, I can tell you my process, but like I've pieced this together from some things outside and then some things inside. These are just some things that felt good. I listen to binaural beats and then hum at the frequency of whatever I'm listening to. And so what is kind of your process, and can you describe the process of getting into meditation? Because I think for a lot of people, it's a scary thing. It's a woo-woo thing. It's a mystical thing. And I think it's oftentimes a lot more practical than we make it out to be before we
Oh
start.
my God. We have put so much architecture and marketing and frou-frou-ness and bohemian and bobo-ness around meditation. It's stupid. You are going to sit still. And when a thought enters your brain, you're going to turn meta on it. You're going to gain psychological distance. And you're going to know that all those thoughts or voices or pictures or images or whatever pops into your head, you can make go away. You can make disappear. And when I finally really understood, when someone said to me, do you believe everything that pops into your brain? I was like, yeah, I do. I believe everything that pops into my brain. It must be there for a reason, right? Versus just my brain is constantly trying to get my attention for me to interact with it.
Mm.
So when I finally understood that the flow of thoughts in my brain, that what was popping into my brain, like literally could be quieted and not there, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter. That was when I really could figure out meditation. And that's when I really figured out how to let go and to let go of control, and how much I was addicted to the thoughts and the puzzle of my own brain and thinking. That it was distracting me from happiness and stillness and worth, because I couldn't simply be. The thoughts in my brain were do. So meditation is being. If you know how to sit and be and try as best you can to have a clear mind, you're meditating. Congratulations. It is not anything beyond that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's the bastard version, right? Because with meditation, oh man, you can connect to an energetic way of being and framework that is beyond words. It's beyond human comprehension and language. And that's a conversation for another day that gets me in the woo-woo territory. And I will tell you, as a girl who grew up in poverty in rural Idaho with people who believe that therapy in the mind is a bunch of made up bullshit, and that this is woo-woo devil California land territory. That's where I come from. Oh, I'm telling you, it's real. This non-believer is a believer. So the more we can learn to let go of this idea of who we are, that we are our thoughts, or that our thoughts actually matter, the more you get into being. And when you're in being, your sense of worth and love and calm and stillness and of what's manageable in the unforgivable machine of daily life, and the unforgivable machine of an American capitalistic society where you have your 9 to 5 and I don't know, just the more you find stillness, the more you get to let go of all that. The more you can manage. You're just much more solid and grounded. And so I guess the real practicality is how I learned to train my brain to be quiet was I forced myself to sit and stare. I stare at a tree. And when I find myself thinking thoughts, I go back to the tree and I start following a leaf. I start looking at a branch. I track a bird. So I look at nature to help me. I look at birds. I look at all my animals, and I just fall into the wonder of them, hopefully so that I can get into a state of really thinking about nothing. The other way that works for me is music. I will listen to, and I've done this all the time since I was a kid, and I think a lot of us do. It's nothing special, but like put on your favorite album and turn off the lights and be in a dark room with nothing except for that music, and concentrate all your effort on the sounds and the words. So that's all you're thinking about. I do that quite often as a form of meditation when my brain is just too much on fire. My brain's always on fire. So that's a form of meditation for me too.
Well, and I think, I always talk to folks about, because some days, some days in meditation, you connect directly to the source and you be getting these, what people call downloads. And I don't want to get too, this is my show. We're going to get a little woo-woo here. But some days you connect to that really deeply. You might get a message that comes through. And other days, it's literally just you taking deep breaths and fighting against the thoughts that are trying to infiltrate your brain. And that both of these are meditation. Both of these are successful results. While one is like it's like a spiritual success because I connected with something greater than myself. I feel like the really physical success, and one of the things that I saw out of meditation when I really started my practice, I'm a Cancer and a poet, and I'm emotional, and I cry over everything. And I used to have a real problem controlling my emotions. Like even my coworkers would tell you, like, I'm intense by nature. Whether that means if I'm joyful, I'm ecstatic. If I'm frustrated, then I'm loud and aggressive. And it used to be a real problem for me to be able to control my emotions. And this practice of, like you said, thoughts come in, let thoughts go. And working to let those thoughts go and not hold on to them and not internalize them really helped shift how I moved in everyday life. Where just, I feel like, the thing I always tell people is like, I learned to control my emotions and not let them control me. And it's night and day. If you look at I would say I started my practice really in 2018. And I think before that, you would see such a difference. Even in, I used to be notorious as a Facebook arguer. Like I was a social media assassin. You said something like, I will call for the cancel. I will see the cancel through. Like it was my thing to fight with people on Facebook. And even now, through that practice, getting to I've only ever had one person come to me and be like, yo, that time that you roasted me online for everyone to see, that really got through to me and I really appreciate it. And I've done that to hundreds of people over the years, and none of those folks ever came through and were like, hey, you really helped me see what I needed to see in that moment. And that comes when I actually get into meditation and I'm able to let go of some of this anger. And when I see that statement, I'm able to get into that curiosity and that genuine curiosity, like you were talking about.
Genuine curiosity.
Yeah. And that was such man, you blew my mind early on in the conversation when you were talking about curiosity, but genuine curiosity versus that fake curiosity. Why do you think we have this? What are some reasons people go into things with fake curiosity, and how do you define that?
So we call it curiosity fraud in the book. So there's a lot of research about curiosity, but we've not talked about curiosity as a culture really yet. The only one who's really brought it to the forefront is Brian Grazer, and he's a filmmaker. So there's 4 kinds of curiosity that we're all born with. So that'll get me to curiosity fraud, right? So we have epistemic curiosity, which is I want to know how things work. Do the Google. There is deprivation curiosity, which is I'm bored. I'm going to go figure out how to go do something to be curious, right? I'm going to go explore. Then you have more intellectual curiosity, which is really about history and why we're here and stuff. But perceptual curiosity, and all the studies done, adults and children alike with those other 3 types of curiosity, it's strong. It follows us all through our lives. It's in our nature. Perceptual curiosity is the one thing adults could deep drop off point, Andrew. Children are perceptually curious up until a point, usually about 14 to 18, and then it drops off. It's like we're hardwired. We know our story. We know our narratives. We know how the world works. And then everything is about proving that to us. We're just looking for evidence to corroborate our own way of thinking. So we lose our perceptual curiosity. Now, in that, we are doing what's called curiosity fraud when we're just corroborating our own way of thinking. So we mold questions in a particular way to get the answer we want. We do that all the time in asking why. Why is like poison. And so in our book, we tell you that the worst word you can do to express curiosity is why. It's the worst curious word there ever was. Why is like putting a person on trial, right? And we're just so like, we experience curiosity fraud when we're just looking for the answer we want to hear. I mean, it's pretty simple, but we do it all the time because we're trying to control our sense of identity. We're trying to control the fact that what we think is true and right, because we're all driven by the 4 fundamental human needs, right? To belong. Well, it's really about belonging, period, as an umbrella. We need to be seen, heard, understood, valued, and accepted as is. There's so much research and evidence. It's stupid. There's just no point in talking or pointing to a particular one because it's so true. We are wired to belong. And so all we're doing when we're being curious about others or going on to read that article, listen to that, watch this, is most of the time we're just looking to enforce the way we think we belong or that belongs. So pure curiosity means you know nothing. And one of the best ways to get into curiosity is to get into a state of wonder. So there is a hierarchy of curiosity. Curiosity is an action. I'm being curious. I'm asking questions. I'm showing up open. Wonder is when you are in the flow of curiosity. You have suspended your thinking brain. You're almost in a meditative state when you are in wonder. All the research studies show that when you are in a state of wonder or awe, awe is the higher state of wonder. It's the humbling state. So you have awe, wonder, curiosity, if you were to put a hierarchy to them. Try to get into a state of wonder because it actually shrinks your ego and it makes you quieter, humbler, and you are able to actually have more curiosity. So wonder is a state of being. And now people say, well, how can I put myself in a state of wonder? Meditation helps. It actually meditation is the practicing point to get yourself into wonder. We actually put ourselves in a state of wonder all the time, Andrew. Every single one of us does every day. When we watch a show, listen to a song, crack open a book, look at a piece of art, we suspend the 4th wall. I know you know about acting and performance. When you suspend the 4th wall, you're doing what?
Breaking down a barrier.
Breaking down the barrier. So, right? So when we enter something, we actually know about the 4th wall as humans, right? Which is, do I suspend my disbelief enough to let the performance reach into me? So I think that's a muscle we can practice at work and in communities. Suspend your disbelief. You do it all the time anyway when you watch a show. So how can I, if I suspend my disbelief and I go to the Andrew show, and I'm not really sure I understand what Andrew's doing these days, but I'm going to suspend my disbelief enough to show up to the Andrew show and watch. And why not watch with popcorn? If I'm not criticizing and I'm not judging, I'm just in the world of Andrew. I'm in his movie. How do I belong to him? And so that's a much deeper conversation because it goes back to the book. But I don't know. That was a long-winded answer.
No, I think that state of wonder and the state of awe, that's such an overlap into this joy hunt, because that's the state. I always talk about there's 2 different kinds of joy hunters, and that's the kind that are consistently looking for new joy. Like, what is that thing that you've never seen before, you've never done before, and you're chasing that new joy?
That's diversive curiosity. That's the textbook definition of diversive curiosity.
All right. So we're learning new terms here, diversive curiosity. And then the folks who consistently work to stay, I'm this way. Juice, my dog, the sunshine, my bed, my healthy body. Every day I try to get myself into a state of amazement with these things. Like I'm still, I'm losing the $1 million words for it right now. But when something loses that amazement, right? Like over time.
Gradually past a deficit. It's like just keeps going down.
There's a $1 million word that I've been so proud of myself every time that I've used for it, but I just forgot it. But this idea of like you were saying, like staying in wonder and finding that wonder and being able to, and I think you're dead on that. Like, that the meditation helps build that the meditation will help you stay in wonder. I can't tell you how many times I came out of a good meditation like, man, my body, my heart just like keeps beating without me telling it to. And I can fill these lungs up and that gets oxygen to everywhere else in my body. Like, this is an amazing machine, y'all. Like,
and then you don't do anything else, right? Gratitude floods you because you're present.
Right.
It's present. It's being present and having presence. When you have presence within yourself, I don't know how to say this any more articulately. Like, when you are fully within your presence in the present moment, that's what you're talking about. That's flow and alignment. Like, and it requires 5 minutes of nothingness.
Right. And that's the other part too. I tell people my regimen is I like to do 20 minutes when I can. But I didn't start at 20 minutes. And like today, right? Like I was like, I'm going to do my meditation. And it had been a minute. I'm going to be just 1,000 with y'all. It had been a minute since I sat down and did my meditations. And I made it about 15 minutes today before I started getting the taps to, hey, what about the show? Hey, you need to come up with some questions. Hey, you need to make sure Katie's got the link and everything for StreamYard. Okay. But I got 15 minutes in, and that's better than 0 minutes. Right. And I tell folks, I have a homie who hit me up a while back and was talking about, he wanted to get into meditation, but his brain moved too fast and the ADD and I said, I have that same brain. Right. And so for me, when I started off, I'd be like, I want to do 5 minutes, but I'm going to start with these 10 breaths. I'm going to get a good 10 breath cycle of as deep as I can, and then as much as I can blow out, and I'll get my 10 deep breaths. And that's where I can start. If I make it to 5 minutes, cool. But if I don't, I got my 10 breaths in. So I think it is, being gentle with yourself and learning these practices. Another big mantra around here is it's a practice, not a perfect. There'll be that chapter in the book as well. So we are coming up on an hour, but before we get out of here, I just want to ask if you have any specific joy hints that you want to give to the folks watching, the folks who are going to tune into this. What are some of your secret weapons for joy hunting?
My secret weapon for joy hunting, it has to be, you have to be present. You really do. You have to try to notice and immerse yourself in what's happening right now. And for me, birds are everywhere. So I'm just going to say this one little tidbit. Go outside. We live in a bird's world. Birds far surpass us in number. They're talking all the time. They're communicating all the time. So for joy hunting, take 5 minutes. Everybody can spare 5 minutes. 5 minutes outside, find the birds, and just focus intently on the birds. And I do think it does a way to wash and refresh, connect you to nature, to sunshine, to outdoors. And it's as simple as that. That's the only thing I can do, because it's quick and dirty and easy, and they're everywhere and they're beautiful. And birds want to communicate. That's all they want to do. Birds want to communicate and be with each other. That's it.
And sing. And that, it's funny. I had a moment last week where I'm trying to write, I've got to write this poem. And I put stupid pressure on myself with this laureate thing. And then my dog jumped up in my lap and she's trying to sit on the computer and she's just not having me trying to write this poem. And then all of a sudden these birds started going off crazy in the tree over here. And then this squirrel jumped up. And I was like, okay, I get it. Shut the computer, put the computer down and just be for a quick second and just be present in that, like, yo, this is wild. Like, you know, and again, that state of wonder where I start thinking, like, where did these birds come from? Where was this bird born? It's now all of a sudden in Sacramento. Like, where does it go? It goes all over the world, I'm sure. Like,
and then also you have material for a poem. Oh,
right. And that's that alignment over hustle. You know, how many times have I stared at an empty screen for hours trying to write a poem? Versus the best poems that I've ever written were ones that came in a flash and just immediately, maybe you got to edit some capitals in there, some punctuation, but that's it, you know? So, you know, again, alignment over effort. Man, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm glad we got you. And it's funny because, you know, originally I was talking to one of your inner circle about having you on, but it was in the book time period. And they were like, you're not going to be able to do that. And I was like, no, but I can't. I didn't know. I didn't have the password. You know what I mean? I couldn't have even got through. So I'm glad we got to catch up and just wishing you all the success on this book. And just everything else you're working on. I know you enough to know that there are currently at least 85 different things that you are, you know, just kind of got your fingers in one way or another. So we look forward to seeing all of those things. And, you know, just thank you for being the light that you are in our community. Just appreciate you coming by.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me. You're awesome.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. So for Katie McCleary, I'm Andrew Defy, and I love you, and you can't do shit about it.
This how God works. Take my position, what is given with no concerns. Set it off. Top of the morning, I'm gonna set it off.